Hello, Kemi. How are you? Welcome to my LinkedIn Live drive that I've been doing. Thank you so much for reaching out and doing this. Is really exciting for me, and I'm excited to learn so much about what you have to offer.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, it's been pretty fun so far, and we've been having some really cool interviews and just discussions. And I think ours tonight is going to be very unique. We're going to take a little bit of a spin on it, and we're going to get into some practical things that I think a lot of people can really, really benefit from. So I'm looking very much forward to speaking about that with you.
Yes, great.
Um, Awesome. So I know we earlier yesterday we were talking about different topics that we'd like to speak about, and one of the things that came up was coaching versus consulting, and
Yeah.
in the business world you hear both sides of it, and certain people have consultants, certain people have coaches, some people have therapists. You don't put that in another category, but saying at the end of the day that for you, because I think everybody has like a different definition about like what coaching is, what consulting is. What is the difference between coaching and consulting?
So I'll tell you, first of all, you're right. You bring up a good point. It's me. It's my opinion. Um, I think the main difference is coaching is really based on the client, based on the person. It's focused on him, whereas consulting is more based on the problem and coming up with a solution.
Hmm.
Meaning what? Let's say now, and again, I've worked with consultants in the past, and this is just my opinion and my feeling. But a guy has a problem in his business. He has a challenge. He reaches out to a consultant. Usually they'll come in. They are professionals. They are experts at what they do. No question about it. They'll assess the situation. They'll get everything together, and then they're going to tell the guy. They're going to give him advice. Hey, this is what you need to do to fix your business.
Hmm.
Coach will come in. He'll assess the business also. But the next of it, he's going to ask through the right questions, through insightful questions that have juice. He's going to ask him, "What are your ideas?" So now you're going to say, "Oh, well, if I got into this mess, what are my ideas? I got into this boat. What do you? I have no ideas." But it's really not true. What happens is you have so much going on in your head sometimes
Right.
that you need someone just to clear the steam. You built a successful business. You have a problem right now, but you also have the answers. So it's really where the coach is more client based and coming up with you're going to come up with the answers. How? Through questions, through different advices and stuff, but it's going to come from you. And that's what I've noticed a lot of times when a consultant comes. Most of the time, from what I've seen, it doesn't work because you know what? I'm giving you advice how to fix this problem or this challenge, and based on my expertise and based on the way I think. But you know what? I'm not you.
Right.
So my personality is not your personality. My thought process is not your thought process. So sometimes you're putting a round peg into a square hole. And that's just why I feel that coaching works much more than consulting because it's fixed on the person.
Right. I think, I mean, being a coach, I think I'm a little biased, but I'll put that
Me
out
too.
there. But, but at the end of the day, I still think that, people are very complicated. Businesses are very complicated. So when you have people and you have and in a business, two very complicated things going on, and then you have somebody coming with like a blueprint, pretty much saying, "Here, these are the things that you need to do." And not necessarily taking the temperature of the person, maybe what's going on in their personal life, or taking the temperature of the business, like, what's the ebbs and flows of the business, and really just saying, this is based on my experience or my, my education. Like, this is the steps you need to follow, which I believe that like most businesses have very similar steps to follow. You know what I'm saying? Like, try to sell something and try to spend less money, which we're going to talk about in a second. And then, as long as you're in the positive, you're making money. Of course, there's like a lot more that goes into that. But when it comes to this, like, it's extremely complicated. And I think coaching, for me personally, when a coach comes in, they come into the situation, like, therefore the person, like you said. And it's really looking to bring out of the person, because most people are resourceful enough to like figure out what it is that they need to do because they have a better understanding of what's really going on. So when somebody can actually have that, I think that's where it gets really, really powerful. And I do believe consulting is very helpful. I believe in
There
mentors.
is a place, but yeah.
I believe in mentors, and I believe in having those types of people on that support team. You know, there are people that I know who have coaches and they have therapists, and you know, like I said before, like it's a different, you know, type of it overlaps a little bit sometimes.
Yeah, it does. It does.
And they both fill a specific need. But I think it's also very important just to understand the difference, because a lot of people, especially nowadays, and I think in our community especially, like coaching is becoming a thing, quote unquote. And there are a lot of coaches that are just popping out like left and right, and whether they have the experience, they don't have the experience. You know, one of the biggest questions I had was when I hired my first coach and I was working on building my real estate stuff. And I asked him, like, do you own real estate? And he's like, no. I'm like, then how are you supposed to help me? Like, it just didn't, I didn't get it. Like, how are you supposed to help me if you've never done it? And he's like, you don't understand. I'm not coming to teach you, tell you what to do. I'm coming to meet you where you are to find out what are the steps we need to take. So even if that means one of the steps is to find somebody who did it, like, how are we going to find that person? Like, you know what you need to do, but then it's really just bringing it out of the person.
It's interesting that you brought that up, because that's one of my pet peeves. Like a lot of times, and look, you definitely have to brand yourself and have your niche, so to speak,
right?
And your expertise. But it's funny you say that, because I find that with coaching, like people say, what's your expertise? You know what? You need to be a good listener and ask good questions. You don't need to know about the business. I don't need to know about it. You know, I went to the Center for Executive Coaching. That's where I got certified. And the instructor happened to have been a consultant. He's a Harvard grad. He was a consultant. He became a coach. His name is Andrew Knight. A great program. And he was saying, he said, when you're coaching, your job is to move forward. You don't need to go into the past. What happened? What's this? So it's really that listening well, which is a very hard thing to do,
right?
Especially like someone like me that's like ADD times 100. I mean, I'm working on it, but listening and asking the right questions. I don't need to be an expert.
Right.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think that's huge, and it's giving the space for the client to be able to come up with those answers. And I think, like you said, like it's asking the right questions, and it's sometimes hard because we might have an opinion or we might have something that we might want to say, but it's not about us as a coach, you know,
Yeah.
It's about the client. And recently I had with my personal coach, I was going through something and he said, there's a few things. And he said, okay, which one do you want to jump into? Let's jump into this area. And we jumped into it. And after about 45 minutes, I came up with like, you know, a way to figure this out and to get through it. And he told me, he's like, to me, like he stopped me. He's like, to me, that was extremely obvious. And I could have told you that in the first minute of us speaking. He's like, but the power of coaching is that like you went through that process and you came up with the answer. So now it's more real to you. And the fact that I was like, you're 100% right, because you would have said it, I would have just blown it off. The fact that I came up with it and I owned it, like that's extremely powerful. So like I think I'm a really big believer in that. And just to jump in, because I know we mentioned the therapy thing, I think that's like the big difference between coaching and therapy is that therapy, you know, you're going into the past, like, you know, as far as into your childhood, but like with coaching, it's like we're here. How do we make progress? How do we move forward? And for me personally, like I remember when I was trying to figure out career-wise what I wanted to do, everyone was like, go see a therapist, go to see a therapist, because like nobody like knew what coaching was.
Right.
Like, I don't think I need therapy because like I'm like indecisive. Okay, like maybe, yeah, okay, fine. And I would see therapists and I'm like, I don't get it. And it was more like, you know, I needed a coach because I needed like, what am I doing to move forward with my life and not worrying about what was happening, you know, in the past. So I think they're all interconnected. They all overlap in a little bit of a way. They're all useful, I believe, in, you know, certain situations. But, you know, the question is like, in terms of like getting results, I really believe coaching, because I've seen it personally, not just because I do it, but
yeah, 100%.
I've seen that. So yeah. Okay. Awesome. All right. So now let's get into the coaching a little bit. Okay. So
yeah.
One of the things that you really love talking about is really just like staying focused with the big picture. And so many times people will, you know, start a business, let's say, they'll even have the success and then something happens, right? Whether they get sick, whether, you know, something changes in the economy. So in terms of like your experience, what you've seen personally, what you've, you know, helped people with, like what's the trick about staying focused?
So I'll tell you one thing. I have to make a disclaimer first. And the first disclaimer is, you know, speaking to from people in the audience, I mean, the disclaimer is we have to do what we have to do. We have to with our Hishtadlut, and we have to do everything. But we also have to know at the end of the day, it is a puppet show. And at the end of the day, it's all up to Hashem. And again, we have to do what we have to do. There's no question. You can't sit home and everything else. But we always have to keep that in the background. I
Right.
just think it's an important thing that we always. I know we know it, but sometimes we get so caught up in everything we forget it, so to speak. Um, but yeah, see, the thing to be looking at the big picture. So I know we talked a little yesterday. Um, you live in Philly, but you're a Giant fan, so that's okay. That's good news. And just to use the sports example, saying everything is excelling in all phases of the game, and like I was using the example of football, where there's offense, defense, special teams, and if you're not excelling in all phases, you're probably going to lose the game. And I found in business, it's the same idea. What happens is all young guys, whoever starts in a business, the first thing is sell, 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 and you got to sell. There's no question about it. Volume drives your business. Um, when I was in the retail business for a while. When I got into wholesale, a very successful man came to me. He said, "I'm going to give you your first lesson. Sales covers everything. Just drive your sales." And that's what I did. Um, and then guess what? So I always give you the example. It's like a wheel, and the wheel's turning and turning. Now all of a sudden, if a little thing gets caught in the cog and the wheel just slows down and drop, whoa, what happened?
Right.
What happened? So when you have a gash on your leg and you put a band-aid, it's not going to help. So and it seems so easy and so simple, but the truth is, I've done it, and I'm sure a lot of people also do it. Is that we're so focused on one aspect and we're not looking at everything else. Now you could be in the import business, and then you should be really looking at your margins, your inventory levels. Aside from it, your team. Is your team engaged? Are they happy? It's not only, like you said, people are very complex. So it's not only about the numbers and everything else. Is your team happy? How are they doing? Are they engaged? And now you could be doing an Amazon business. How's my returns? You could be doing a service business. But I just see it's so critical to take a step back and look at all phases of your business, because you know what? You could be doing. I had a company I knew many years ago. They were doing $125 million in sales.
Wow.
And they went bust, and this 20 years ago. And I'm sure we hear stories about guys on Amazon doing 50 million, 80 million, 100 million, and all of a sudden, they thought their allowances, Amazon charging them 40%, and it wasn't 40%, it was 60%, and they got 80 returns instead of 20 returns. But you're not focusing because you're so running with your sales and running that you don't take that time to stop and step back and look at that big picture.
Right. Yeah. And I think what ends up happening so often is that like you'll see some success, and you hear like you need to continue moving forward, and like you take on a little bit more risk, and you can you can hold it, and then you take on a little bit more, and then like you said, like one thing happens, and then like the boat starts to shake, and you're like, what am I going to do? And it's funny because I remember speaking to somebody who owned a bunch of units. Like he was in real estate, he owned a bunch of units, and he said like, I'm not making any money, but I'm not losing any money right now. And like he had a debate, like, do I sell one of my buildings? Like just have that like a security, but also be like, just know that like, okay, let me like build this smart, like I could sell one, and maybe in 20 years, like who knows, maybe a terrible idea, but like right now, like it's too shaky. And I'm thinking about just selling one off just so I can really hold everything else, because if one of these buildings fall, like they're all done, you know what I'm saying? And so many times people have that, but like, why do you think it's so hard for people to recognize that, A, and B, also like look to, okay, like let me get serious and like let me figure out a way to like make this work?
So it's interesting you're talking about real estate, because as you were saying it, I was thinking that the key is building a solid foundation. And a strong foundation builds everything. And I think a lot of times we want to hit the ground running, and the foundation is not that strong. We're really building a house of cards, because you need that cash coming in, you need that volume coming in, and then I think you just get sidetracked, and you're just not. It's funny, as a coach, you never like to talk too much about yourself, especially when you're talking to people. But like, I had a business. We were doing about $12 million, and we closed the business because we were bleeding, and me and my partner, we didn't know it. We weren't educated enough, and all those things, over inventory, this, that.
Right.
So stripped the business. And the next year we did $1 million and made like $10,000 because we had a sell. Now you could build.
Right.
We didn't go forward, but that's another story. Right. But the point is, if you have that foundation that's strong, you can build anything. But I think that's what it is. I think guys get sidetracked because they just want to build and do sales, and they're running, and they're not stopping to look.
Right. So what is the foundation? Because people are asking us, okay, like that's nice. So sales is for sure. It would seem to be one of them, right? But let's say two other examples of what people should be aware of, because they might not just know what's going on. Like what are two other areas that people should start to focus on to ensure that everything can really be held up?
So I think depending on what your industry is, I think it's understanding what your product costs, and whether it's a service business. I don't know too much about service business. Let's say it's an IT guy. What's
Right.
your rent? This. I think it's understanding what product you're offering in whatever industry is really what it's really costing you. Like they tell you in food all the time, right? There's a food cost, there's a rent cost. I think you need to understand the cost of your product, how much you're really making on it, and go from there. I think those are the two main things. Is really understanding your structure to build your foundation the right way.
Right. It's interesting you say that, because I have a client who we started working with together. He had his company for a couple of months, and he was in business, and he's looking to take it to the next level. And like one of the first things we do is we do a mini audit on his company, and it's just like how much money's coming in, how much money's coming out. And it went from making a couple $1,000s a month to making less than a couple of thousand, to breaking even, to you're losing money and you're bleeding money. And for him, his homework was just get everything on paper. And I know it's hard sometimes, and it might be embarrassing. And you could be doing millions of, like you said, you could be doing millions of sales, but if you're spending millions and you're bleeding, the Band-Aid needs to be a lot bigger. And people, whether it's their egos or they're just in denial about the fact that certain things are going on, the best way to really start to what do I do today? It's let me get extremely honest and clear with my business. Because if we can be honest with the business and see what is really going on, which most people don't because they're all over the place, then we can start moving forward and we start figuring out which areas. And maybe it's not going to take a day or two. It could take weeks or months to fix it. But we need to know what's going on and come up with that plan to be able to make those things happen. And that's where I love coaching, because my job is to call you out. So this guy who was didn't want to write down all of his expenses, he only wrote down some of them. I'm like, dude, you got to get it all down. If you're not going to get it all down, we're not moving forward. You don't understand. And it was so hard. And I said it's hard, but it's going to be a lot harder to have to close your business than to do this.
What was making him bleed?
What was making him bleed? He was his prices were too low, I think. Number one. Number two, he wasn't getting enough sales. It wasn't even sales. He wasn't giving enough prospects. He wasn't getting enough people into the door. And he wasn't doing reach out. He was doing, I would say, he was being lazy in the marketing. So he put an ad in a paper, that was his marketing. And it probably most industries, you got to get on the phone with people. Even the people who are successful are getting on the phone with people, and you don't realize that in order to close people, to get you need to be on the phone. And I think what happens, especially nowadays with social media, is we see these people who have this social media and they think they're flowing with people coming into their businesses. But I speak to the successful ones, and you can see their calendars and the amount of people that they're in contact with, and the texting and the calling that they're in just
nonstop,
for weeks and months. I remember there's one client of mine who after I literally got him as a client after 7 months from the first time I spoke to him.
Wow.
7 months. Yeah, and because we had a call, it wasn't the right time, so I'd reach out to him every couple of weeks. What's going on? And then he started ignoring me, but he didn't tell me to stop. So I'm like, okay, he's still giving me permission. He still wants it. I knew I could really help him. And then one day I text him, hey, what's going on? He's like, all right, I'm ready to start. I'm like, great, let's start. And just like that, it was something that ended up working. And if you could just stay consistent, you can stay persistent, but to get in front of people. And one of his big things was just the fear of, rejection, of getting said no to, which is most people's, in sales.
Yeah.
Said no to, but it was just something that, we got to put on, we got to do what we got to do and get ready to make the decisions I need to get taken care of.
But it's so funny. See what happens. You get caught up in one thing, and you're not paying attention. That's not that you don't want to see. You're not paying attention to it. I don't know how many people actively ignore a situation and actively ignore. Oh, I know I'm not making money, but I don't want to see it. I think they just don't see it.
Right.
And I guess the reason it's passionate for me is because I lived it.
Right.
And I lived it. I did it. Sitting all of a sudden, and wasn't no money. Wasn't no money. Do you know you have $3 million of inventory in the warehouse? Yeah, but this guy was taking it. Yeah, but he only took half of it. What are you doing with the other half? And you pay the factory. And it sounds so stupid, but it's not, because you're just not focused on it. And that's why I you don't want people to make that mistake.
Right. Yeah. That's and it's so simple, and it's a switch. It's just getting more intentional about what you're doing, and really looking to see what it is that you can be doing. In terms of marketing, I know we have to go in a second, but in terms of marketing, what are some pieces of advice for anybody who are looking to just get getting in front of people?
Yeah, I think it's really conversations, just talking. It's funny. I'm not really a salesman. I'm more of a talker than a salesman. So I think it's just getting in front of as many people as you can, just talking. Hey, this is what I do. You think there's a fit? Can we talk? I just want to lose one thing, because I don't run out of time. I love that word you said, intention. You have to be intentional about what you're doing. It's a great word. But I think it's just about having conversations and, like you said, being persistent. You're calling guy for 7 months. How many guys are calling guy for 7 months?
Yeah.
After a month, okay, Hatch, I'm done. Not doing it again.
Right.
So I think that's part. I think it's having conversations, putting out good content, if it's in LinkedIn or if it's social media. And I think I've got to be up to, you know.
Yeah, I would say also, and on this is, I would say, like, having a good CRM, a follow up with people, because this guy who I spoke to 7 months ago, I could have just lost him. You know what I'm saying? Like he could have just been in my phone, my contacts. So everyone you speak to, and you ask these to the people who are successful, like, where's your list? You know what I'm saying? Like, what's your list? Maybe it's on their phone and their notes. Maybe it's on Excel. Maybe they get fancy with like an Asana or Monday.com or something like that. But they have a list of people that they're following up with. Maybe it's not every day, every couple of weeks. And it's just to reach out, like, hey, what's going on? Still here if you need me. Because we all know ourselves, we do it. Like, sometimes we're interested, other times we're not so interested. Okay, but when the right time comes, I'm ready. I'm ready to jump in.
Yeah, so true.
Amazing. Cami, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much. Where can people
find out? Enjoy it. Thank you. You can look me up on LinkedIn.
There you go.
Cami Safdie, and I'm there.
Amazing. Love it. All right, Cami. It's been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great night.
All right.
Bye-bye.